What's good, y'all, and welcome to a very special video. Today, we are finally reviewing the Snyder Cut. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the day has arrived. The Snyder Cut has officially been released. It actually came out yesterday at the time of this recording. And I just watched it today after watching a handful of reviews from other YouTubers I watched before I start recording my own. And yeah, man, I gotta say, first off, can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that this actually happened? Like, there were so many people, like, the theatrical cut happened, it did its thing, you loved it, you hated it, whatever. I'll talk more about the theatrical cut in a second, because I actually did I did go back and rewatch it yesterday before I started watching the Snyder Cut. Just to refresh my mind on the theatrical cut, what my thoughts were, did my thoughts change at all, and also just just so that I could really notice the differences between both films. But yeah, like I said before, can we just take a moment to appreciate this actually happened? That film happened. We all know Zack Snyder was fired or he left the project because of his daughter's committing suicide. Whatever the reason was, Joss Whedon came in there, finished the movie, and it was released. We all know what happened. And then the fans came out there demanding, "Oh, release the Snyder Cut! Release the Snyder Cut!" I actually remember this YouTube video from this one YouTuber. This dude did a video like defending The Last Jedi, which you'd think I would like him for that. He also did he's like one of those screenplay YouTubers. I forgot the dude's name. I might link the video or I might cut this part out, I'll see, because I haven't actually remembered, but I'm pretty sure he said this at the end of one of his videos where he said the Snyder Cut doesn't exist or whatever. And he was at like Comic-Con. Because you guys remember Comic-Con, what was it like? 2018, I think it was. And, people were actually like posting signs, the hashtag release the Snyder Cut, all that shit. This dude was like, oh, this movie doesn't exist or whatever. and then now it's up, and I'm just like, And then, it came out the same year. Bleach also got announced to return as well. It's fucking crazy, man, how the shit 2020 was. We did get the announcement of two things that people didn't think would actually happen. The Snyder Cut and Bleach's anime return. But whatever. So, yeah, it's crazy that actually from fans alone and just their constant, tweeting or whatever you want to call it, of demanding Warner Brothers to release the Snyder Cut. It finally happened. And I do hope that due to this, and hopefully it's been very successful for HBO Max, which I assume it would be, that it opens the door for other filmmakers to maybe finish up their cuts or get release of whatever, because they some people you guys may know from High Top Films, he's mentioned a couple times about releasing the Schumacher cut, because there's a decent some chunks of Batman Forever that got cut out, which I watched this video he did on Batman Forever a couple days ago or whatever it released. So I would be curious to see what the official Schumacher cut is with those scenes added back in and how that would work, because they seem interesting in there, and it did look like he was trying to make a more serious Batman film while also making it more kid-friendly after Tim Burton. Then Batman Forever, then Batman Returns, or not Batman Returns, Batman and Robin just went off the rails, whatever. Or perhaps Mark Webb can finally release his original vision, his original cut of the first Tasman film, because it also had some production issues and a lot of shit got cut out, as well from the deleted scenes in the original trailer and all that stuff. So I would like if this would set a precedent for filmmakers who maybe didn't get to express their original vision, could now get that opportunity to do as well, because they see how profitable this film was. That Sony will that Warner Brothers will also release the Schumacher cut for Batman Forever, and that Sony will unleash the original cut for not only Tasman but Venom. Because remember, Venom also had some pretty mean cuts as well. I'm not going to be holding my breath for any of those. If they happen, they happen. If they don't, they don't. I'm not losing sleep either way. But it would be cool if those cuts would also see the light of day. So that would be cool as well. But anyway, so with all that being said, what did I think of the Snyder Cut? I fucking loved it, man. This film is amazing. This film is a much more improvement over the original theatrical cut, the Joss Whedon cut, the Warner Brothers cut, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So, let's just jump right in, man. And now, I am going to be doing this predominantly spoiler-free, and of course, around the end of the video, I'll do a spoiler discussion, and where we'll just dive into spoilers. So, strap in, guys. This video is probably going to be this video might end up being long as the actual fucking movie, because there was a lot that got showed off from the Snyder Cut that I want to talk about, some of the scenes that he added in, and all that shit. But yeah, man. let's just jump right in. So the plot of the Snyder Cut of Justice League is basically the same as the original theatrical cut, with Steppenwolf invading Earth to grab the mother boxes, and Batman and Wonder Woman form the Justice League, bringing the band together to, of course, stop them. There's, of course, some additions added in there with with the biggest one being Darkseid, which we'll talk more about Darkseid in a minute. So, of course, like usual, the cast includes Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Henry Cavill, Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller, Ray Fisher, the boys. So, so first off, let me talk about one thing I did love is, first off, Batman in this film is a lot better, because I remember when I rewatched the theatrical, because y'all might remember, if y'all have been like OG subscribers of the channel, you guys may remember when I did my initial review of Justice League, I gave the film a 10. I was praising up and down and saying how great it was this, it was that, Superman, all that shit. And that opinion stayed consistent after I got the Blu-ray, watched the film again. I still loved it, still had that same verdict. But then I either watched it for the third or fourth time yesterday, and I was like, man, this one does not hold up as much as it did when I first watched it. I think that could have been, I felt maybe, I don't know if I would say burnt by BVS, or just so conflicted on BVS and the things it did, that I was just hoping for anything that was better than that. Just because it went on with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex, as well as Doomsday. So, and then of course you have Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman, I think released before both of those films. Yeah, they both did. And I ended up loving both of those films. So I was just kind of like hoping, just praying that Justice League would be better than how BVS turned. And it did, to be fair. I would still say I would give the Joss Whedon cut or the Warner Bros. Cut better. I still like it more than the theatrical cut of BVS. Obviously, I prefer the Ultimate Cut BVS more than the theatrical cut of Justice League. But if we're comparing the theatrical cuts of both films, I definitely give the slight edge to Justice League, just for the fact it doesn't have Jesse Eisenberg's Lex throughout the whole film. But he's there in the post-credits. So, first off, I loved how Batman is, because when I was watching the film, y'all know me and how I am about Batfleck. I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I yearn to see him one more time as Batman, and which I got my wish here, to be fair. But it would be cool if he got to do that solo movie. We got that Batman solo movie with Ben Affleck. Sure, we have the movie with Robert Pattinson coming out, I want to say next year, or maybe the year after that just wrapped up shoot. Looks fantastic. I am hyped as hell for that. But I still want to see that solo Batfleck film for no other reason, just to see him to go up against Deathstroke. Which he's still in the film, by the way. He is still, that whole post-credit scene, that is actually in the final cuts. That was all Zack Snyder. Which I was kind of wondering if that was actually Joss Whedon, they threw that in there to set up a sequel, or that was all Zack Snyder. That was Zack Snyder. But so yeah, so with Batman in the theatrical cut, first off, he doesn't really do much of anything, and they have the thing where they kind of are almost setting up almost something between Wonder Woman and Batman. They kind of lost scenes together. Maybe they're trying to set up some romance or something. That a lot of those scenes are cut out. Now they do have this one scene where they're kind of reviewing some of the footage of Cyborg or the Flash and Aquaman, and they both end up putting their hands together right on top of the mouse. That's about it. Which, to be fair, is a little bit more obvious than whatever they did in the theatrical cut, but whatever. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That was there. But here, first off, Batman's jokes make a lot more sense, given that it's Batman, because before in the original theatrical cut, you had him being like, oh yeah, something's bleeding. After Superman said, till you bleed. Which I still like that. I still like that joke, just because I like those nice little callback to BVS, because we all know how everyone took that line of, tell me, do you bleed? You won't. We all know that. So I still enjoy this. But anyway. But here, his jokes make more sense. They are that type of Batman, I don't know if you would say dryness or whatever, but they fit Batman telling jokes, which I appreciate. The jokes flowed a lot better from Batman. So, you had that. And I also thought Ben Affleck did a lot more, and also, Batman straight up kills again in this film! Like, my man is out here. First of all, he has all those giant ass guns, which I think he also had the theatrical club. But my man is out there when he's like, when the parademons are coming out on his car. This man, like, I don't know, swerves or something. But this parademon just gets impaled by his spike. And there's blood everywhere. And I was like, hell yeah. And then we also had the nightmare sequence, but we'll talk about that one in the spoilers section. So that was hype. That was hype. So I like Batman's, and that's all. That also brings us to the overall sense of humor and the joking and the jokes of this film. There are definitely a lot less jokes in this film compared to what we got in the theatrical cut, but they all end up landing and they all end up fitting their characters. Like I already mentioned how Batman's jokes fit better. The Flash's sense of humor mostly stays the same. There's a couple of additional scenes that they added in there from the theatrical cut. But the jokes that we do get end up, I feel like, fitting a lot more. Because I remember when I was rewatching the theatrical cut last night, I was like, some of these jokes don't land as much as I remember them being. So there's less jokes, but they fit more. But it's definitely more quality over quantity. Excuse me. Wonder Woman. First up, yo. Can we all talk about Wonder Woman's theme right quick in this new score? So the original score of this film was done by like Junkie X. I think his name was. But because Snyder was removed and Joss Whedon brought in Danny Elfman to finish to do the score again, and he threw in some notes from the original classic Superman and Batman stories. I gotta say, the Junkie XL score is much better than Danny Elfman's score. I'm just saying it right now, the music is a lot more better, it's more hard-hitting, and Wonder Woman's theme, bruh! Yo, I think I might actually like it more than fucking Hans Zimmer's theme that he did for BVS. And that's sad because Hans Zimmer's theme for Wonder Woman and BVS, man, that should have been, especially at the beginning with the that song was an absolute banger. You guys are going to hear some of the soundtrack in the background for this video. So you guys can hear it for yourself. So that was awesome. Dark Side, it was cool to see him again. He was cool to see. Now, don't go into this film like I did. I suspected that because this film is 4 hours. The first 2 hours are Steppenwolf. The other 2 was Dark Side. It ain't like that. I think I might have gotten a little ahead of myself when I saw Dark Side thing that we might actually see him going up against the Justice League, but because the movie was 4 hours, it's still Steppenwolf's movie. Dark Side is more or less like how Thanos was in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where he's basically just there to remind you of what's coming next, or would have come next if this actually released. Now, not so much. We don't know if this is going to lead into Zack Snyder continuing on with his verse, the DCE, with his characters, or this is the end of the line for the Snyderverse. We'll have to wait and see with time. But that's basically Darkseid. He mostly just kind of sits there in the background. We see him a couple times. He's badass when we see him. I love him. You see the Omega beams and everything. It's cool. I loved it when he was on screen. But I would have liked that we actually did see him go up against the Justice League. But he does get some cool badass moments later on in the film. So now of course, we gotta talk about the runtime real quick. The movie's 4 hours and like 2 minutes. Now I was kind of curious on how that was going to turn out on the pacing. This film, actually, the pacing overall is really good considering the length of this film. And like Endgame, which was like 3 hours, Endgame didn't feel like 3 hours, nor does the Snyder Cut even feel like 4 hours. Like, I of course took an intermission about 2 hours and 25 minutes in around the start of chapter 5, just go to the bathroom, refill my popcorn, take a break, a quick little intermission real quick. But the length didn't really hit me. I still felt like I was watching like a 2-hour movie. It did not feel like 4 hours, surprisingly. But yes, 4 hours is a long time, and there's no way in hell this film, or at least this 4-hour cut of it, would have worked in theaters. It just wouldn't. Sure, psychos like me, who are hardcore comic fans of both Marvel and DC, we would have gladly seen this movie and asked for seconds. But the general audiences aren't like that. They are like, 4 hours. I know my dad, if the film released like this, he'd be bitching and complaining every 5 minutes about like, oh, this movie's too long. It's too long. 4 hours. It's too long. My dad complains about movies that are 2.5 hours long. You think he would sit through 4 hours? He probably would have dozed off like 20 times in the film anyway. Because my dad sleeps a lot in movies, I've noticed. Sleeps when he watches them at home. So there was that. But for me personally, the runtime didn't bother me. The aspect ratio was something that I thought that you guys saw when the trailer first dropped. I was kind of like, why is this a 4:3? Now, technically, it's whatever the aspect ratio is that IMAX uses, and they use that one for the final cut of the film. Now, at first, I didn't really get it. I honestly would have preferred the movie was in like 16:9 or some other typical widescreen ratio. But after a while, you don't even notice the black bars, and you get used to it. So it didn't end up bothering me as the film progressed. I already mentioned like how Wonder Woman's theme is. I already mentioned the music was great. Let's talk about the new characters and some of the additional themes before we start going deep into the spoilers. First off, the character that definitely benefited the most was Cyborg. There was so much this man that got cut. Now we know that there was definitely some of it got cut from the original trailer into some screenshots, like the football game, for instance. We all knew that got cut. But yo, it ain't just the football game that got cut. There are huge parts of that we get of Cyborg that were cut out of the film entirely, whether it's in training, figuring how his new abilities work, obviously the football game and learning his backstory. This is basically almost a pseudo like Cyborg's origin film at times, because he definitely gets a lot more screen time than he originally did in the theatrical cut, and you really do get to care and grow attached to Cyborg as the film progresses. And also Ray Fisher's performance, especially because in the original theatrical cut it was kind of whatever. He did his job, nothing out of the ordinary. But here he really does shine in the Snyder cut, since he has so much more screen time. We finally get his backstory and we learn more about him. So that was cool. Flash got some extra scenes as well. I was actually kind of saddened that we found out that actually, you guys remember when he turns on the breaker box and Bruce Wayne is waiting in this I don't know, whatever we're gonna call this place, and be like, Barry Allen, Bruce Wayne. Now, if you guys remember, in the theatrical cut on one of the TVs, the TV that's like right behind Bruce, is playing like some K-pop song or J-pop, whatever it was. I was actually surprised in the Snyder cut, that song wasn't playing. It was just like a pink screen of a skull. And I was actually kind of a little disappointed by that, because I actually really think that song played in the background. But besides that, the scene itself definitely, and that's like the one thing I definitely got to mention. We got to talk about this, like not only the digital content, but the amount of like changes and differences between. Because there's a lot more scenes that were cut out of the film and that were changed and replaced with other scenes, like the whole Russian family stuff, which is nowhere to be seen here. Which honestly I didn't mind it, but what we got instead for that with the Flash is way better. But there are certain scenes in the film that are basically the same throughout both versions, but they have like different dialogue, like or there's changed slightly different. Like in the theatrical cut, when Bruce swings, throws the battery towards him, Flash kind of dodges it, looks back at him, and then grabs it. But here he kind of like waits, but here they kind of linger on the when he's in the Speed Force a little bit more. Him kind of like wondering like, putting to be like, oh, Bruce Wayne is Batman, before he slowly goes in there and grabs the battery. And it doesn't instantly stop right there. It kind of like looks at it before everything's returned back to normal time or whatever. So that was cool. And of course, you also have that black chick in the beginning, which honestly, I actually thought the black chick was going to have a much bigger role, considering how many times we saw her. Not only through the trailers, but just some screenshots or whatever that Zack Snyder dropped. I thought she was going to have a bit of a bigger role. She doesn't. She's just some chick that Flash saves around the start of the film. So that was actually kind of surprising. But I'm trying to think of else. Of course, you have the big file battle scene, which is also very different from the theatrical cut, because of the Russian family and some other stuff that was added as well. Another thing I gotta praise very quick is Steppenwolf. Now, Steppenwolf, I would still say, was still a weak villain. He's really nothing to write home about, but I will say he's definitely a little bit better here than he was in the theatrical cut, simply because we know more about him, why he's there, which in the theatrical cut we got nothing. He was just like, big CGI monster, I want mother boxes, and fights the Justice League and has to fight Justice League. Here we get a bit more where he owns a big debt to Darkseid. That is like 50,000 worlds. He owes Darkseid before he can get back in his good graces and all that shit, and get the mother boxes. So I did appreciate that. He's still not really that great of a villain, and you really don't really care, but you care a little bit more because we now get a little bit more of his backstory. So you had that. I already mentioned the music. The scenes were also differences. A couple of them I touched on before we jump into spoilers. Yeah, that's about it. I also gonna say, but wait, we gotta talk about Superman real quick. We gotta talk about Superman. Superman is fucking awesome. I would argue he has a way better entrance here in the Snyder cut than he did originally in the theatrical cut. And when he got the black suit on, bruh. And we also had this one scene that was actually in the deleted scenes we got from the theatrical cut of Justice League. The one where he's like looking around his ship and like you see the black suit in the background. That scene plays, and you actually have it with not only Hans Zimmer's theme playing, we do have some dialogue as well. I'm not going to spoil who they were, but you guys can probably figure it out. Um, that I really dug it with the Hans Zimmer's theme playing in the background of the Superman theme. Oh man, that Hans Zimmer's theme, man, Superman, man, that should be hidden different, man. That should be hidden different. So yeah, that's about it. I really got to say for the Snyder Cut. Only my really only problems I had with it was really just um was just Steppenwolf. Really, that's really the only thing I could think of. Other than maybe I wish Darkseid maybe had a little bigger role. Be extra. I actually saw him fight a little bit against the Justice League, but that could have just been me getting myself overexcited, judging by the trails and all that shit. Yeah, man, like, there isn't really much more I could say that was really a problem with this film. This really fixes almost everything that probably most of you had with the original theatrical cut. Oh, one other thing I gotta mention. This was something that I didn't notice when I watched the theatrical cut of Justice League. That I didn't really even notice, but once you actually see, because of the 4-hour cut, you see kind of the background to these two things. It makes a lot more sense. It kind of makes the theatrical look even worse, because you don't even really explain this. So, you guys might remember, and this is the last thing to say before I give you guys my final verdict, we'll get to the spoilers discussion. But, you guys might remember, in the theatrical cut, you sometimes see Batman, like, deflecting, like, some of the blasts or whatever from the parademons. You see him kind of like deflecting them with like his wrists, his wrists or his armbands or whatever. Those things where he has on his arm with like spikes on them and everything, blocking with them. Now I always never thought much of it, but once we find out what actually happened and what's that's all about, it's amazing. Like, oh, why was that cut in the theatrical cut? And then you have the ending of the theatrical Justice League where they're bringing back Martha's stuff back into her house, and Superman asks like how he got the house back, and he said he bought the bank. Like I said, this goes back to the dry humor where Batman it's just like, how'd you get the house back? I bought the bank, I love like those like couple times where you actually see Batman joke around. It's a lot better here than I thought it was in the theatrical cut. But anyway, so that was and he said, and so what actually happened was, and I don't think they ever mentioned this in the theatrical cut, but Martha got evicted from the farm, and she ends up just pretty much just like living in like some smaller house. Well, in the theatrical cut, they don't even really mention the fact she ever got evicted or anything. I don't even think we even saw the foreclosure sign on her house in the theatrical cut. I might be wrong. But yet, in the theatrical cut, they still show the ending of that scene where they're moving her stuff back in there, and Clark says how he got the house back, and Bruce says he bought the bank when they didn't even tell us why he bought the bank and why she lost her house in the first place. It makes the theatrical cut look even worse. I know, and with the gauntlets thing, we find out that actually Superman had that, or Alfred rather, and Alfred, by the way, was a fantastic film. I love Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I love his sense of humor in the film with the jokes he cracks. But they basically can like absorb like the energy from the parademons, basically kind of like Wonder Woman's wrist gauntlets, but Batman kind of did his own little spin on them. So that's why you could do that, because I remember that theatrical and I never thought much of it, but then I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. So yeah, and also one other thing. One other problem I definitely gotta say, I definitely do. This is one thing I think the theatrical cut did a little bit better, was the overall chemistry of the team. I feel like with the theatrical cut the theatrical cut, they had a bit more chemistry with the team with the additional things, like that one scene where Arthur's kind of like chilling on the Batmobile, and he's like kind of like confessing his feelings, which was a Joss Whedon scene where he's just sitting on the lasso of truth and he's just talking. That scene, of course, is cut in the Snyder cut because Zack Snyder didn't shoot. But I like that scene. It kind of goes to showing up like kind of more camaraderie of the team and them kind of coming together, more of the chemistry between them. We really don't get moments like that in the Snyder cut, I noticed, even with its long runtime. I noticed we didn't really get that. So that's one thing that I think the Snyder cut, or the theatrical cut rather, did a little bit better than the Snyder cut. That's probably about the only thing I can think of off the top of my head right now. Yeah, man, so that's really all I gotta say before we jump right into the spoilers. So I'm gonna give you guys my final verdict, and then we're gonna jump right into the spoilers, because, oh boy, we got a lot to discuss. So, overall, I give the Snyder Cut a 10 out of 10, and my updated rating for the theatrical cut is an 8.5 out of 10. It dropped a couple points from my initial review, but yeah, man, the Snyder Cut is definitely the definitive way to watch Justice League, just like the ultimate cut is for BVS. So you guys definitely, so I hope when you guys do check it out, whether you love Snyder, whether you love Justice League or you hated the theatrical Justice League, highly recommend you guys check it out, because you guys will probably be pleasantly surprised by it. Anyway, man, let's just jump right into spoiler stuff. So if you guys don't want to get spoiled, y'all want to go into spoiler free or whatever, leave the video now. Still here? Alright, let's jump right in. So, first up, Martian Manhunter's in the film. And this shocked me, because I know some people were theorizing that Green Lantern might make a cameo, that we finally see Green Lantern. Which we also did get some extended scenes of the Green Lantern that we saw in like that scene where like the Atlanteans and the Amazons and the humans all teamed up together against Darkseid in that one scene that was replaced with Steppenwolf. The Green Lantern that we saw there gets a little bit of an extension, but there was no actual Hal Jordan or any of the actual Green Lantern. Instead, we got the Martian Manhunter. And first I'm going to say, I love his design. I think it looks really cool. And I was shocked to see that general we saw back in like Man of Steel and BVS ended up being the Martian Manhunter. And that was really cool that we actually did see the Martian Manhunter, because I didn't think we were actually going to see it. I thought, oh yeah, it's probably going to be Green Lantern or something. I did not expect it to be the Martian Manhunter, so when it was him, it was really exciting, and I really loved his design, and it was cool after we saw a scene with Lois. Which another problem I definitely did have with the Snyder Cut is that I think Lois does get more screen time in here, but she really does nothing in the film. She just kind of just mopes around, kind of being like, oh, Clark is dead. She just kind of mopes around and carries coffee. That's really all she does in the film. So that was another problem I forgot to mention there. Was Lois. But yeah, so and then at the end of the film, after we get the nightmare sequence, he kind of like Bruce leaves his house, goes to like his porch or whatever, and Martian Manhunter's there being like, hey man, I heard you started up a team, I want to join, all that shit. So that was pretty awesome to see the Martian Manhunter in there. So that was really awesome. I really did see the Martian Manhunter. So let's talk about Cyborg real quick. So the football game itself, which was awesome. Which when I got excited when we finally saw the football game, because I was like, the one thing we saw in the original trailer that we know got cut out. So I was excited to finally see it. And it was awesome. It was mostly done in slow-mo, but it was done really well. And Zack Snyder did a really good job. No surprise, the dude directed 300, which also used a lot of slow-mo as well. But that was cool. I really dug seeing the football game actually portrayed. And so we find out with Cyborg is that his dad never was really there for him. He was always kind of stuck in his work. His mom and him got in a car accident. Her mom ended up not pulling through. His son was basically dead on arrival, but he managed to grab him out, fuse him with the mother box, and then boom, he became Cyborg. Now, one thing I also really thought this one scene they added in there, which wasn't in the theatrical cut, was when Cyborg starts learning his powers, he sees like these, like, I don't know, surveillance footage or whatever of this family that got evicted from their place, from their apartment. So my man, what he does is when he's like kind of like outside, he has his hoodie down, but he still has that like sports jacket on or whatever. He goes to like the ATM they're at and infuses and then puts into their account like $100,000, and of course it's to get them back on their feet and all that shit. So that was a really nice little moment. I like that. And then you got like two people like kind of looking at him strange, and he just puts his hood back up. They also I gotta say, low-key, the ending is low-key ripped right out of TASM 1. Low-key, it was like I was watching Black Christmas. The original Black Christmas after watching Halloween 1 for so many times. It was the same thing here, because what happens at the end of the film, so Cyborg's dad dies in the movie. He straight up dies, which shocked me because in the theatrical cut, the man lives in Cyborg's like kind of like design gets changed more to what he looks like more into the comics, with a giant red circle rather than the jagged edged diamond thing that he was rocking through most of the film. That scene is completely cut out. He does not get a redesign. He sticks with that design throughout the entire film. But he gets like this audio recorder. His dad tries to talk to him, but his son doesn't want anything to do with him. He leaves him behind this audio recording of him, and in this audio recording, he listens to the first half, which is him talking to his side, like, "Oh, you're such a advanced technology. You could do anything." And that's also when he learns how to fly and a couple other things to figure out how his powers work and all that shit. But when he gets to when he talks to him as a son, as a father, he crushes the tape. He crushes the audio recorder and leaves it there. But after, of course, he dies, he goes back, reforms it, and listens to the rest of it. I thought to myself, man, Zack Snyder must love the first TASM film. Because the ending is right there. Because then you got most of the ending portraying how it was the theatrical cut with Batman kind of chilling around, Wonder Woman doing her thing, Superman kind of like walking around and pulling out his, taking off the glasses and pulling off his shirt and revealing S, which actually was still rocking the black suit, not the red and blue suit like he was in the theatrical cut. You have all that playing and him flying around in Flash, moving around, running, while that audio is playing. And it was just like the ending of TASM 1. Kind of crazy that man is like, that's like the most blatant rip of a Marvel I've seen Zack Snyder does. And it wasn't even from the MCU. So I'm not even saying that was a bad thing. I just noticed that like real quick. Because I've seen TASM 1 so many goddamn times because I love Spider-Man. So, so definitely, I don't know if y'all noticed that, but that's something that really stuck out to me. But yeah, so and that wasn't the only thing we saw from Cyborg. We saw with him, his family. We got more backstory of him, and we actually saw. And I like the whole scenes wherever he was like explaining more of the mother box, how they work. He always showed up in these areas with him in like his gym out, in like more of his like, I don't know, high school outfit where he has like that sports sweater thing. I don't know what you call those jackets are. The ones with the patches on the like sports team members always wearing like high school movies and shit. He was rocking one of those. And it's kind of like exploring and looking around the area doing that. So I thought that was also really cool. And then at the end of the film, we get him where he's like fused in with the mother box, which we'll get to the Flash in a minute, because this is another thing I loved about the Snyder Cut that I noticed about the original theatrical cut that I didn't notice before until I watched this. But anyway, so after he infuses, he's in like there's like this plane, and you have his parents there along with like him and his fully human body. But he says, I'm not broken, and I'm not alone. And so that's when he kind of fuses them out of with like the three sorcerers or whatever, and that's how he completely unfuses the mother box with the help of Superman. So that scene was also really, really cool that he's like fully embraced the cybernetic side. But let's get to the Flash. So in the theatrical cut, you guys had him where he was pushing, like you had the whole thing with the Russian family and all that shit, pushing the truck out there, while Superman picks up this giant building and then just takes him out. Which honestly, I still think that scene was kind of fun. But here, they basically are doing Flashpoint. Like pseudo Flashpoint. And that's the one thing I definitely did like, but this film is so unadulteratedly DC. They do not shy away from DC's ridiculous lore. Because with the theatrical cut, it was more of like a traditional superhero team-up film. Nothing too crazy. It doesn't really lay much into the DC lore. This goes all in there because you have Flash, which before the theatrical cut, they never once mentioned anything about Flashpoint, time travel, or any of that shit. They mentioned that here. That's the one rule bury, one break. It's like just him manipulating time and return and backing up time. This is like he's like the one rule he breaks, but he does it twice. First off, with the mother box is when he has to revive Superman, because it actually hits because in the theatrical cut, it was like you have to hit it right as it hits the water. But here, it hits the water, goes in, but then but from him speeding up there, he actually reverses time back before it hits the water, and then as it starts to descend again, that's when he touches it and it revives Superman. So, and also I love the fact in the Snyder cut, Wonder Woman still calls Superman Kal-El. Love that. I was hoping that was in the Snyder cut. I was wondering if that was going to that got cut out as well, but I'm glad that was Zack Snyder, because I think it's kind of hard when Wonder Woman calls Superman Kal-El by his Kryptonian name, because Loki shipped those two, so I like that she calls him by his Kryptonian name. Anyway, getting off track, but I like that scene. So you had that. But, where the hell was I? Oh, yeah, Flashpoint. So he gets them up, but then the second scene is where he's just basically running around in circles around this like area that they're in while they're trying to get the mother box together. But one of the paradudes manages to like shoot him, which he's like groaning in pain. He's like, because like the burns or whatever. And also, I also like thought the scene where we actually got to the that sewer area or whatever, where they're underneath the Gotham Harbor. Instead of the theatrical, you might where Flash's like, I don't do this. I just push people and then run away. That scene is completely cut, and he doesn't do that. He just kind of instantly starts seeing people like pushing the paradigms and all that shit. So that was actually kind of cool as well. But anyway, I'm getting off track again. So he's circling there. So then after a while, but because he didn't go back until spring or whatever, he ended up being too late. The mother boxes fused together, and Steppenwolf basically won. Which, by the way, I love his redesign. By the way, I think I mentioned it before in the video, but I love the redesign for Steppenwolf. So what Barry ends doing is he ends up reversing time once again, and you get that shot that Zack Snyder released like on like his like Veto or whatever that social media is about black and white, and where he's like basically like I don't know with like some other plane as he's reversing time. And it was really cool, and that's like the one thing I like because DC can get pretty convoluted with its lore because it deals with time travel, multiple universes. That's kind of DC's thing is time travel and have in the multiverse. Marvel has their own multiverse, but DC is known for their multiverse because of like Crisis on Infinite Earths and all that shit. So I like they just went all in with the lore of DC, and they didn't even shy away from it, like kind of like what BVS did with Flashpoint as well, but. I feel like they kind of like went more so into this here with Flash going into Flashpoint with Flash being able to time travel and shit. And like I said before, that whole scene where you have to see him like running back in time before he like goes to where Cyborg is and taps him in there to like unfuse mother boxes. That whole scene was visually stunning. So props to the VFX guys and the CGI guys for that scene. That looked fucking breathtaking. Love that scene. So. And I already mentioned Batman, Killer was back to killing motherfuckers. But let's talk about the nightmare sequence which we got at the end of the film. So the nightmare sequence, we see Batman. He's kind of like looking around the area. We see Superman. Around the end there. But he's there with Cyborg, Deathstroke, who now is rocking like more of like a mohawk, and the that one chick from Aquaman, the red hair chick. I think his name was. I'm also slipping on her name. So they're all working. So they all are together, and they're kind of like wondering how to get moved to their next area or whatever. They're there with Flash as well. We actually see his full gear, and he's like, then Flash now in this like nightmare verse, whatever you want to call it, now rocking like this more like metal suit on top of his traditional costume, which I thought looked really cool. But anyway, so he ends up meeting with Joker, and of course they have the whole conversation. But this scene was awesome. For one scene and one scene, so the whole time Joker is taunting Batman about Robin's death and all that shit. But then Batman says, I made a promise, I plan to keep it. I'm going to fucking kill you. And I'm going to make sure it's slow. He said something along those lines, but he said, I'm going to fucking kill you. Batfleck said, fucking, which I was like, oh, yes! Batfleck, give me more! Y'all know me and Batfleck, I love it. So that scene was awesome. I love that scene where he just said, I'm going to fucking kill you. But they make a truce, and then Superman comes in there, and that's when Bruce wakes up and there's a Martian Manhunter. What else? Is there any other major scenes I need to talk about real quick that I can think of on the top of my head that I want to discuss? Not really. Other than also the Wonder Woman scene was where she gets introduced. I thought that scene also was done a lot better in the Snyder cut than compared to the theatrical cut, mostly because of the music, but also it was also kind of shot differently. This is one I noticed because in the theatrical cut, Wonder Woman does the whole thing with the deflecting bullets. She grabs a briefcase, but then just kind of like moves up to like one floor up and then throws it out the window. Here, she goes all the way up into the air and then throws it. With stuff like that, I'm curious on why they reshot sections like those again, when they basically did the exact same thing, but in a slightly different way. Maybe Joss Whedon just wanted to put more of his thumbprint on this film. I don't know, but I actually found, because that was also happened a lot of times throughout the film, was either scenes happened the exact same way, but they were either shot a little bit differently, extended or shortened slightly, or just had slightly different dialogue. I thought that was also kind of strange. Now, between the openings, I low-key think I prefer the theatrical cuts opening, because in the Snyder cut, they basically started off with how BVS ended, with Superman dying and killing Doomsday. Well, in the theatrical cut, you have people just kind of like criminals running amok with everyone else playing in the background, which I love that song. After I saw the theatrical cut, so I kind of prefer the theatrical cuts opening just a little bit more than the Snyder cuts opening, but that's just me. And yeah, man, I think that's all about it I got to say. This video ended up being damn near 40 minutes. Yeah, man, like there's not really much more I can say other than I would like to see the Snyder cut does come back. Or the Snyderverse rather, and we see more of this universe. We see the second part of of Justice League, where we do see the Justice League going up against Darkseid. Oh, I gotta tell you the finale. How could I forget about the finale? So the final fight, Superman comes in there. He's with the black suit, and instead of him saying I'm a big fan of justice, he now like when Steppenwolf goes to kill or use his axe on Cyborg. He closes in, but Superman comes right in front of him and stops the blade with like a shoulder or whatever, and he says, not impressed. And like just starts, and he just starts punching the shit out of him. And yo, it's awesome. Especially when we get that one scene where he's like, which we got in the trailer, where he looks like using his heat vision, like right in front of her, and kind of like right in front of Henry Cavill, and you see the black suit and everything. Oh, it's so good. And then Wonder Woman comes in there, strip. They also like chop off one of his like horns or whatever. Then they like throw him into the air, and they start beating on him for a while. And then Wonder Woman straight up decapitates this motherfucker. Wonder Woman don't fucking play in this film. And I love all the added gore. That was another thing I loved about this film. I love the added gore. Really added to the action sequence, and I loved it. So thank you for the gore. I love my gore. But anyway, she decapitates him, sends it through the portal to Darkseid. Was in Darkseid, he just stomps on it, getting rid of bringing up his other horde, which I thought that was just badass. I already liked Darkseid before with the season we got right now, but yo, I was like, man, can we please get more Darkseid after he did that? Come on, can we get Darkseid, please? Please, can we get Darkseid? More Darkseid, please, because that scene was awesome. But yeah, man. And also, we also had the Deathstroke scene, which was actually the post-credit scene. In the theatrical cut, it's actually just thrown right in. It's actually thrown in before the credits, but before the nightmare sequence in the Snyder cut, which I thought was kind of interesting. I thought that was also going to be. I was curious to see if that was even in the theatrical cut or in the Snyder cut, rather, because I thought that might have been added by Warner Brothers in the theatrical cut, but no, that was in the Snyder cut as well. So I was glad to see that because I love that design of Deathstroke. Yeah, man. Yeah, now, yep, that's about everything I got to say with you guys. This video is 40 fucking minutes long. I've said my piece, so tell me down below in the comments if you guys saw this film. Did you love it? Did you hate the Snyder cut? What is your thoughts on the new added scenes? What scene did you like the most? Were you happy to see the Martian Manhunter appear in this film? Do you wish we saw more of the Snyderverse? Do you wish to see more of the dark side of the Martian Manhunter, the DCEU? Tell me all that down below in the comments, guys. And yeah, man. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe for new. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you feel like it. Links down in the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.